So I'm in my greenhouse come garage, and I've got this little spot here where I can make little videos like this where I'm not doing things in the garden, but I'm just talking about a particular subject. And in a future video I will do a tour of the garage greenhouse because I've laid it out quite nicely, and in the next few weeks I will be filling it up with plants I'm overwintering, and hopefully I'll fit everything in here. But I've tried to keep a bit of space right at the front so I can have a nice seat, a cup of tea, and do little videos to camera as well. And today I have been to Jungle George's garden over in North Lincolnshire, so about an hour's drive away from where I am. It's not particularly further north or south, but it's due east from Wakefield where I have my garden. And there's so many things in George's garden that are similar in terms of particular plants and also, in a way, layouts that I have in my garden as well. So I'm just going to share a few thoughts I have, and before I go on, I've got no footage from the visit today. So me and George had a good 5 hours talking about gardening and YouTube, and talking about plans for the future, and having a good natter about all things gardening. It was great to finally see his garden in the flesh. And when I say we've got a lot of similar plants, that's true. We've got a lot of the structural evergreen plants and the doers throughout the garden, and we share those sort of same plants. So the palm trees, the bamboos, and also the ferns, the tree ferns, and some of the more tender plants as well, such as the cannas. So the actual layout of the garden is pretty similar. So we've both got long, narrow gardens. My garden is not quite as long as George's, but George's garden is not as wide as my garden. But overall, it's a similar sort of layout in terms of having a long, narrow garden. And also we have got sort of, don't know if it's done by chance or it's just the way it's worked out, we've got the same sort of order of some of the main plants. So if you know my garden well, you know I've got sort of bigger junglier plants to begin with, and then it opens up into an arid area, and then it finishes off with eucalyptus trees at the very end. And that is the same with George's garden as well. So he's got lots of jungle, when I say jungle plants, big foliage plants. So he's got some really big bamboos, tree ferns, gunneras, things like that in the first sort of half of the garden. And then as we move through, it opens up and you get more sky and less enclosure from foliage, and he's got a big arid section where he's got some palm trees, but he's got lots of things like yuccas, and he's also got some agaves, and he's got that great fire pit under construction as well. And then past that, he's got what I see as like a blue garden. He's got yuccas and he's got some eucalyptus trees as well. So it's a similar sort of layout to what I've got. But our gardens are different ages and they're not the same. We're using a lot of the same plants, but we've got different sort of effects. So whereas I have got sort of lots of tender plants intermingled and plants from seed, George has used his foliage plants to really envelop the first half to 3/4 of the garden. So lots of green, but lots of contrasting shapes and forms of foliage. And it's got lots of sort of persicarias and ground ferns underneath the larger plants as well. And then, like I said, when it moves into the arid section, the big difference between my garden and George's garden is mine's pretty flat. I've kept mine pretty much on a level because I raised everything up, and I've raised it so everything's on the same pretty much levels. There's no topography, there's no verticality in my garden from the ground's perspective. Yes, there is with the plants, but the actual ground is pretty much level all the way through. Whereas in George's garden, it's level for the first half or so, and then it starts sinking down, and then it's got this fire pit area under construction. But either side, where it's got arid beds, where it's got large granite boulders, he's backfilled with lots of sand and gravel, and he's got areas of planting that is starting at waist to head height in areas, so you've got the plants looking to either side, so it's quite a sparse arid area, but the plants, you can see them up close and personal, and they're really close to you. And you know, that verticality means you've got that great drainage for those plants, but you've also got a bit of a journey up and down and round, and especially as you get to the end with the eucalyptus trees and the apple tree at the end, you've got some really nice views all around, looking down in the fire pit and then up and around to the different levels. It's really good what George has done there. So I was really impressed with that part of the garden. So like I said, I didn't do any footage when I was there. That is mainly because we were just chatting away about gardening, but George has done a great walkthrough video, or look at, you know, his review of the year sort of thing video. So I'll put a link to that in the description. Check out his channel, you can see that. And I've just done a walkthrough as well of my garden this weekend, so you can see how my garden looks, and you can see the similarities and the differences between our gardens. We're both pretty much in the same part of the world, you know, both Northern England, trying to grow an exotic jungle style garden, arid garden, in our locations where we deal with cold winters really, and not the hottest summers in the world. So we've got comparable climates, and we've got a lot of the same plants. We've got some different plants as well. And like I said, my garden's about 10 years old now, and George's is more like 3 or 4 years old. So there's a big difference there in terms of age, but already the plants in George's garden are really filling out and filling the space rather quickly. Some, you know, like the gunrose, completely taken over one section where it's planted, because it's absolutely enormous. So it was great to visit George, see his garden, and I would definitely say watch his space for future videos. We might do some collaborations in the future, and definitely keep up to date with my videos, see the journey of my garden, how it changes. I'll be doing some more overwintering videos in terms of getting ready for winter. Check out George's videos, he's got lots of exciting plans in the future, and you'll get to see that fire pit finish, I'm sure, next year. So thank you for watching this little talking head video in my greenhouse garage conversion. Join me next week, we'll be doing more in the garden.